So that song came out of an experience a few years ago when I was working with high school students on the Hopi Reservation. I was brought in with a team of volunteers to teach students heart-centered leadership. Before arriving, I did not fully understand the depth of the generational fear and pain that was held in the container of the high school we were entering. On our first day, it seemed as though everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The fear we were confronting was huge. I was at a loss. After the first day, I reached out to my circle of companions and spiritual friends and explained the situation. They listened and they offered support. And in the middle of the night, I received a text, a 5-word text from one of them. The text simply stated, "Be love in the room." Be love in the room. So we scrapped all of our plans. Everything that we had worked months to put together, we tossed aside, and I said to my team, we're showing up in the school as love in the room. Probably one of the most significant experiences of our work on the Hopi Reservation. The miracles of that day when we let go of everything else and just committed to being love in the room. In a world that often feels divided and filled with fear, love is the force that restores us and reconnects us. Love is that force. And I cannot think of a more important message right now than to be love in the room, or to be love on the street, or to be love in Minneapolis, or to be love in DC. To be love. Just be love. Well, sometimes children provide the wisest insights for us grown-ups. And so the following quotes about love were gathered from children many years ago, but they still ring so true. Let's see if you agree. Marianne, when she was 4, she said, "Love is when your puppy licks your face, even after you left him alone all day." She knows something about love, right? Right? Now, Rebecca, when she was age 8, she says, "My grandmother got arthritis and she couldn't bend over and paint her toenails anymore. So my grandfather does it for her all the time, even when his hands got arthritis too. That's love," she says. Huh, Marianne or Rebecca knew about love, eh? Now Nika, when she was age 5, said, "If you want to learn to love better, you should start with a friend you hate." Right? Right? Uh-huh. Now Billy, age 4, he says, when someone loves you, the way they say your name is different. You just know that your name is safe in their mouth. Huh. He was only 4 when he said that. And Tommy says, "Love is like a little old woman and a little old man who are still friends even after they know each other so well." Some of us know that, right? Some of us know that kind of love. And Jessica, when she was age 8, she said, "You really shouldn't say I love you unless you mean it. But if you mean it, you should say it a lot." People forget. That's right. That's right. And here's my favorite. Bobby, when he was age 7, he said this: "Love is what's in the room with you at Christmas if you stop opening presents and listen." Yeah, that's what I said. Wow. Love is what's in the room with you at Christmas if you stop opening presents and listen. Wow. Gosh. I know that love is the strongest force in the universe. I know it. I don't believe it. I know it. And I know that all life is an expression of that love, including you and me. But because we are human beings, we are endowed with free will. We are never forced to be the expression of love that we actually are. Think about this. A tree cannot choose not to be the expression of love it is as a tree. It just can't. A squirrel cannot choose not to be the expression of love it is as a squirrel. It can't. A butterfly cannot choose not to be the expression of love that it is. It just can't. But human beings are different. You and I can choose. And so many often do choose not to be the expression of love that we were created to be. But when we don't choose love, I believe the only other option to choose is fear. In my work with young people as a therapist, I see it again and again and again. There are only two options. We are either choosing love or we are choosing fear. And love and fear are mutually exclusive. They cannot exist together. Listen to that. Love and fear are mutually exclusive. They cannot exist together. When we choose love, fear diminishes and love increases. When we choose fear, love diminishes and fear increases. Always. Always. So now the kind of love I'm speaking about when I speak of love is not that fickle emotional experience that goes up and down with our moods and with changes in the weather. It's not that Valentine's Day Hallmark card love. The kind of love I'm talking about is a state of being. Love is not an emotion. It's a state of being. It's a state of being. I want to take us back to ancient Greece for a moment here to understand the kind of love I'm talking about. The ancient Greeks, if you might know, used many words to express different experiences of love. It's wonderful. Eros is the word for romantic love. Philia is the word for friendly love. Pragma is the name for practical love. And philatia is the word for selfish love. But the name for the kind of love I'm talking about, the kind of love that is a state of being, is agape. Perhaps you've got it on your arm. Agape. Agape love. Not agape, but agape. Agape love. The ancient Greeks also, well, in agape love, what does that mean? It's unconditional, selfless, universal love. That's agape. Unconditional, selfless, universal love. And it's clear to me that all life and all creation is an expression of agape. Unconditional, selfless, universal love. Now, the ancient Greeks also had a word for fear. The word is phobos, and it means panic or terror. Fear is also more than just an emotion. It becomes a state of being as well. When I choose into fear, I choose into smallness. Panic and terror keep me safe and secure in my comfort zones. Fear or love. It's all we get to choose. Fear or love. Agape pushes us beyond the comfort zones of fear because it is the greatest force in the universe. And we get to choose. Squirrels and butterflies and trees don't get to choose. We get to choose every moment of every day, in whatever space we find ourselves in, to be love. That's our choice. We get to choose it. And because agape love is a choice, developing habits of love, probably a good idea. So there seem to be 4 habits that, as I was working on this, seem to come back to me again and again. So I want to spend our time together talking about what I'm calling the 4 habits of agape love. The 4 habits that help us to be love in the room. Again and again. Now remember that a habit is a regular practice that becomes the prevailing disposition or character of a person's thoughts and feelings. Thank you, Merriam-Webster. The first habit is the practice of vulnerability. Whew. Do you have that tattooed on you somewhere?
I do listen to Brene Brown, though.
And Brene Brown is the queen of vulnerability, right? Brene Brown, if you've not read any of Brene Brown's books, she has a beautiful book called Daring Greatly, and she focuses on the power and the importance of vulnerability. And really, vulnerability used to kind of be a dirty word. She turned it into a glorious word. Vulnerability is how we find our freedom. It's what moves us. It's what allows us to be love in the room. She says, vulnerability is having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. Ooh. Vulnerability, having the courage to show up and be seen without having any control over that outcome. She also says that staying vulnerable is a risk we have to take if we want to experience connection. It's a risk that we have to take. Why is it a risk? Vulnerability is a risk. I don't want risks. I want to be calculated. I want to be controlled. I want to be safe. If we're going to connect, we have to risk. We have to risk. It's a risk when we show up authentically and allow ourselves to be seen, because we could get hurt. And we've all been hurt. We've all been hurt. Hurt is unpleasant. But I will always choose the possibility of being hurt over the possibility of never knowing love. I will always choose that. Always. As a trauma therapist, so many times, that's the challenge. Because a kid has been hurt. Nope, I am not going to let myself get hurt again. But when we do that, when we can't become vulnerable, we also say, nope, I'm not going to experience the power of real love either. A simple act of vulnerability that I absolutely love is to look in someone's eyes. Really look in someone's eyes. Because only when we look into someone's eyes can we see their worth. I sing about it in my song. That was one of the things we did that day. We just looked in each other's eyes and allowed others to be seen in their worth, and allowed ourselves to be seen in our worth as well. That's risky stuff. That's risky stuff. One of my favorite things to do, and I mostly work with teenage boys, so you think about this. One of my favorite things to do is to have a teenage boy sit across from me and just look into their eyes. Oh, and it's awkward and uncomfortable, and they're going like this, and they're all, but pretty soon they settle into it. And I'll ask them, what do you see? What do you see? Love, safety, acceptance. For some, that's the first time they've ever been able to do that. Vulnerability is the first habit of being love in the room. We've got to be willing to risk being seen authentically. And perhaps we'll be hurt, but that's okay, because love is always bigger than the hurt. So The next habit for being love in the room is consistency. Consistency. Showing up consistently as love in the room can't be understated. Without consistency, trust can't grow. And the quickest way to break down trust is to be inconsistent in how I show up. If I have something going on unchecked internally, or if I've had a challenging day, or if I'm attached to some sort of negativity, and I show up in the room in less than a loving way, what immediately happens? People pull back, they put up walls, they kind of withdraw. Right? I had this experience. Some of you know that over the summer I had to have heart surgery. And I was put on a medication called flecainide. Yes, see, I talked about this before. Flecainide. Let me tell you, flecainide made it really hard for me to be love in the room. It changed my personality. It was awful. It was the worst thing I've ever experienced. And I hated it. And the doctor said, no, you can't go off of it. You can't because you could have troubles. And I finally got off of it in October. And so many people said, John, we're so glad you're back. It was awful. It was so hard for me just to be patient and loving and gentle and caring. You know, the person that I am. So I was experiencing this. I'm showing up inconsistently. I can't be love in the room when I'm on flecainide. So, you know, we have to be really careful because unless you're on flecainide, you're responsible for how you show up in the room. You are responsible. You know, I always tell people, I'm not responsible for how you feel about me. You can feel however you want about me. But I am responsible for how I show up in the room. That is my responsibility. And so I got to do the work to make sure that I can show up in the room in a loving way. I got to take care of myself. If I need to back away or step out, I'm the one that needs to do that so that I can be in that loving place. In spite of the circumstances, and in spite of how the personality self perceives a situation, it's my responsibility to be love in the room. This is what the Christ did. In the Christ story, we hear that as he was being nailed to the cross, he chose love and forgiveness for those pounding the spikes into his hands and feet. Could have chose something different, but he didn't. The story tells us how to be love in the room, even when the situation and the circumstance is awful. We still can choose to be love in the room. I believe showing up consistently as love in the room is a way for us to embody and expand Christ consciousness on this planet. And I think it's our responsibility to do that. The third habit that keeps coming up for me is the practice of boldness. Boldness. Showing up in a timid way as love in the room just doesn't cut it. The habit of boldness requires us to show up in a powerful and maybe even radical way. So here's a story of some boldness. Maybe. When my mother-in-law died, she was buried in the Catholic Church. Now, the Catholic Church is very strict about what happens at a Catholic funeral. And I was told very clearly, even though I sing and even though I can do these beautiful things, that I could not sing her favorite song during the ceremony. Her favorite song, Bridge Over Troubled Waters. What a beautiful song. And they said, no, John, you cannot sing that song because it's not liturgically correct. Well, I knew I needed to be loved in that space. I knew it. So I snuck my guitar into the pew where I was sitting. And after communion, as the priest was cleaning up the altar, I grabbed my guitar and I went and stood right next to the casket and I started singing Bridge Over Troubled Waters. And when I was done, I patted the good old casket and said, "We love you. See you on your way." Right? Right? Gotta be bold. We've gotta be bold. Now, I would say that was bold, to a degree, but I didn't care. Maybe I would be excommunicated, but at that point I didn't care. I just didn't care what they thought. Right? Sometimes to be boldly loved in the room comes at a cost. That didn't come at a cost. That's a great family story. Like, it's legendary now. So, but sometimes boldly being loved in the room without timidity, right? Boldly being loved in the room comes at a cost. And I think of what's happening in our country, especially in Minneapolis right now. The call is to be bold. The call is to be loved in a bold way. Timid love isn't going to cut it. And I'm inspired by the bold acts of love we are witnessing from the good people of that town. But the boldness of their love has come at a cost. In this moment, I speak the names of Renee Good and Alex Pretty. And I honor them for showing us what bold love looks like. There are times we have to show up in a bold way. And sometimes that boldness has a cost. The fourth habit that I want to share about that kind of came to me as I was working on this is the habit of community. We know that here. We feel that here, right? See, I've got to enter a room to be loved in the room. I got to show up in a space to be loved in a space, right? If I don't engage with my brothers and sisters, agape love cannot manifest. Thomas Merton, a 20th century spiritual writer, poet, and social activist, said, "We are already one, but we imagine that we are not. And what we have to recover is our original unity. What we have to be is what we already are." Right? He also said, "Love is our true destiny. We do not find the meaning of life by ourselves alone. We find it with another." Love is experienced in community, not in isolation. Dr. Leo Buscaglia, a well-known professor of psychology from the 1980s and the author of numerous books on the topic of love. Anybody know the name? Yeah. Leo Buscaglia? Yeah, he and I used to be writing buddies back and forth. What a man, what a man. Anyhow, he tells the story of a 4-year-old boy who learned who understood that love does not happen in isolation. The story goes, there was a boy who noticed his neighbor grieving the loss of his wife. And he went over to the man while he sat alone on his porch. The boy crawled into the man's lap and sat quietly with him for a long time. The boy's mother, who had watched from her porch, asked her son when he came back, "What did you say to comfort him?" The boy replied, "Nothing. I just helped him cry." Wow. Right? Right? Love doesn't happen in isolation. To be loved in the room, we got to enter the room, or the porch, or the street, or the church, or the synagogue, or the theater, or wherever we are. Love happens in community. love happens in community, right? Agape love cannot manifest. Agape love cannot manifest in isolation. So I've always believed that relationships are the mechanism for miracles. Relationships are the mechanism for miracles. God gives signs and wonders in many ways, but I've come to believe that signs and wonders are not miracles. I've seen the sun spin in Medjugorje, Yugoslavia. I've seen it. I've seen clouds take the shape of a raven in the sky when I'm offering prayer. I've seen it. I've experienced a boulder tumbling down a hill directly at me and about 20 feet before me, split into two and go on either side of me before it crushed me. I've seen it. I lived it. I experienced it. Those are signs, maybe wonders, not miracles. No matter how glorious they might have been, they're not miracles. Because miracles only happen in the container of relationships. So many of the teenage boys that I'm privileged to serve come into my orbit from a place of isolation. Remember the song from the 1990s by Mike and the Mechanics, All I Need is a Miracle? Yeah. You want to sing? All I need is a miracle. All I need is you. All I need is a miracle. All I need is you. Right? I believe that song is why kids come into my orbit. Because all they need is a miracle. All they need is a connection. All they need is love. I'm asked many times the secret to my work as a therapist. And I don't say it's because of psychological theories or strategies or anything like that. All I say is it's because I love them. That's it. Because I love them. My secret is agape. Our secret is agape. To be love in the room. To be in the abundance and the strength of what we're called to be as people who step into the divine and know the divine and become the divine. We need to practice vulnerability. We need to practice connection. We need to practice being in a space of love in the room for each other. That's what it's about. As Valentine's Day approaches, I invite you to be intentional about being love in the room, about being agape love for each other, and begin practicing those habits of vulnerability, consistency, boldness, and community. Mother Teresa, one of my favorite spiritual people on this planet, gave us the words, spread love everywhere you go. Let no one ever come to you without leaving better and happier. Spread love wherever you go. Let no one leave you without being better and happier. My friends, be love. Just be love.
If you would like to support this content and others like it, please give at unityoftoledo.com, where love is an everyday experience.